strategy, and product development. Her work crosses multiple industries, including government, not-for-profit, education, commercial real estate, entertainment, law, wellness, pharma, tech, and financial. As a senior project designer, she works collaboratively with clients and project teams, taking pride in both the end result and the service, delivery, and design experience. In her role, Jessica educates clients on workplace trends and strategies, leveraging HOK's global workplace and interior design expertise. Please welcome Jessica.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us on this Friday morning. We super appreciate it. I am joined this morning by my colleague Sarah Profrag. She's one of our fabulous interior designers in our Dallas practice. Sarah specializes in all of the same market segments that I do, and she's a phenomenal member of our team. So we are so thrilled to be here this morning and talk to you about what next. So we're talking about the workplace going forward this morning, and just to kick it off with, let's see if I can do this. Just to kick it off with, is it this button? No? Let's play from start. How about that? Thank you.
There you go. Yep.
It's Friday. Just to kick it off with the really fun stuff, this is a CEU. You're getting AIA credits. It's a CES for continuing professional education. We aren't going to talk about any, products or things that we should sell you today, but it is an accredited program. So enjoy those CEU credits. So what next? Workplace going forward. We are seeing this time in our lives as a call to action. We were all thrust into this really wonderful pandemic for the last 3 years, and it really was an eye-opener for us. Obviously, there were a lot of things that happened that weren't so great, but we're trying to think positively about what are the steps that we can take to see this as an opportunity. We know now for sure that after the last 3 years, we know that the workplace of yesterday, the workplace of 2018, 2019, is really not serving us anymore. And maybe we were making do with spaces for a long time that weren't helping us do our best and most collaborative work with our teams. So we're really trying to seize the moment and take this as a call to action to improve the quality of our spaces and create moments that matter within our workplaces so that we can provide inclusive experiences for all. So these are the big 5 topics that kind of keep business leaders up at night. There are a million, right? And we're not going to answer any of these today, but we are going to talk about them in more detail. So the first one is health, safety, and well-being. How do we keep our employees engaged, happy, safe, productive, motivated at work? How do we help people increase and improve their work-life balance? We're also thinking about remote work and working from home. We know that hybrid work is here to stay, right? So people aren't going to come back to the office full time. And what does that look like as we think about improving technology, accelerating technology, making it more equitable for people to work in this hybrid work environment? Of course, they're thinking about business resiliency, they're business leaders. And what we're really thinking about is creating this purpose of place. Like I said, we want to create spaces that people want to be in, to encourage people to come back to working collaboratively together with their colleagues. So how can we create a purpose of place and create spaces that matter? And then finally, you've probably seen ESG show up a lot in the news, and maybe you're even talking about it in your teams and in your offices. Environmental social governance is a huge goal for most companies. If they don't already have that as a value or as a strategy in their business plan, you're probably seeing it being created now. And we even add the letter H after that for health. So how can we include that health, safety, well-being platform in our ESG goals as a company? Now I'm going to throw some numbers at you, so bear with me. It's Friday morning. This first stat's kind of wild. 252% more time has been spent in online meetings than pre-pandemic. Duh, right? But aren't we all sick of Zoom? Like, aren't we all just cameraed out? I know I am. I'm so burned out from being on all the time and being engaged and smiling on Zoom calls. But that's the world we live in now. And honestly, how many of us are maybe turning off our cameras so that we can multitask during meetings? Like, are we really able to be productive and engaged in a remote environment? Sometimes yes, but honestly, a lot of times, no. So one of the negatives about this, obviously, is that the work-life balance has become even less balanced and even more critical to try to solve because, I'm about to be a parent. God bless parents that lived through the COVID-19 pandemic. Like, people are having to deal with kids and dogs and family members and all kinds of crazy things at home while they're also trying to do their jobs. And, we've learned that there's been an increase in the workday hours and a lack of that work-life balance because people are working earlier in the morning and later at night, and there's no in between, and there's no separation, right, between your workspace and your home space. Thinking about real estate perspective, about 52% of 185 office tenants surveyed expect to reconsider their portfolio over the next 3 years. This isn't necessarily breaking news, but what we were excited about in this survey that we found was that almost 40% expect to expand their workspaces. So that's really good news for us in our industry because people want to refresh their workspaces. People want to create better environments for their employees, and that's huge, right? They are looking, a few are still looking to planning to occupy the same space, but in the big picture, most of them are expecting to expand. And we also know that it's really critical for us to figure out the hybrid work strategy. 6 of 10 firms polled believe that they will lose both new and existing talent if they don't figure this out. And they're also afraid of losing people if they're being forced to come back to the office full-time. So we know, and especially I feel like maybe just because I'm older, but Gen Zs really expect that flexibility in the workplace. Like, they're not coming to the office 5 days a week. And maybe they never will in their careers, who knows? But for the rest of us, maybe we want to be in office more than somebody else on our team. So how do we leverage that and create balance and make sure that we have a structure in place that's flexible enough that works for everyone's preferences and everyone's lifestyles? And the crazy part is up to 30% of our workforce today were hired during the pandemic. So we've seen this huge great resignation, mix up of people changing jobs, even people changing their entire, career paths. And if up to 30 people have been hired during the COVID-19 pandemic, that means that they've never been in an office physically with their teams, which is wild to think about. But that's what makes it even more critical for us to create shared spaces that engage people, that bring people back to the office, because some of those people are meeting for the first time in 2 or 3 years. And finally, this might be kind of obvious, but we know that we can do our best collaborative, most motivating and productive work when we're together in an office. So let's create workspaces that matter. And then these are 12 points to consider. I won't read them all off, it's a lot of words. But big picture, how can we focus on quality and innovation over strictly productivity? So, engagement and equity, creating spaces that work for all, is really key. And finally, speaking of presence and coming back to the office, these are some of the things that we're thinking about that aren't just, well, you physically need to be here so that we can keep eyes on you to make sure that you're working. These are benefits of presence, and we're really thinking about, again, quality work. How can we help people not just be feeling productive, but feeling motivated and feeling like they're part of a team? We're thinking about equity and inclusion. We're thinking about sustainability, and we're also thinking about movement and engagement and well-being. So how can we create those healthy environments that make people psychologically, mentally, physically feel better while they're at work? And then these are the future shifts. So the top bubbles, the black ones, are kind of what we were thinking about in the past, and then these teal ones are what we're thinking about in the future. So it's not just a place of work, it's not just your office, but it's a place of purpose, a place that matters, right? We want to bring our whole selves to the office. We want to think about people as colleagues and friends and not just employees. Are they members of our community? We also want to think about integrating tech more holistically into our environment so that it's less about a siloed tech experience. And then ultimately we want to create spaces that are inclusive and accessible to all. So whether you're on the neurodiversity spectrum or not, we know that everyone's brains work differently and people communicate differently and people think differently. So providing those different environments that can help different minds grow and learn and work the best is really critical.
So we're going to touch on 5 critical tools that we're using as we design workplaces today and for the future. So we're going to go into each of these in a little bit more detail on the following slides. So coming back from the pandemic has really created a very unique challenge, let's say opportunity, right? So there's an expectation for the office to offer more choice and control. How do we bring the comfort from home into the office and activate our spaces in a new way? So one trend that we're seeing is actually a reduced desking across the board, right? So what that means is that we're giving way for more alternative work points, whether that be share tables, focus pods, additional collaboration seating, work cafes. So it really, so much more so that 50%, more than 50% of companies intend to provide more gathering spaces, really an expanded footprint as far as amenities are concerned, and also activity-based working solutions across the office. So the kitchen is the heart of the home, right? So we're really seeing our cafes, our pantries as really more of an opportunity for gathering and collaboration. So what does that look like for us, right? So we're seeing larger footprints, more centralized location within the office, and also more AV integration to really not only be somewhere where you can go and eat, but also somewhere you can plug in throughout the day to really collaborate with your team. So we're leveraging reconfigurable furniture, as we're seeing here in this Accenture example, and flexible lighting solutions for a more dynamic gathering. So, we can go from a more lounge setting to an actual informal conferencing, and really using our, offices to their full extent, right? Where it's no longer only reception, it's no longer only a lounge space, it really becomes a secondary work point and a secondary amenity for the office space. So we are employing sensors as a way for us to really understand not only how many people are coming into the office, but also understanding what spaces are being utilized the most. So what that helps us and employers understand is that data actually gives us a really great reference point to make adjustments as needed, as you get new employees, as you're really understanding how your teams function within the office space. So what is going to get people back into the office, right? So we should focus on fostering connection, belonging, and culture. A sense of community is really key coming back from pandemic. So even though team interaction remained high during pandemic, right, the million team calls that we all had every single day, the emotional connection between individuals and sense of belonging at work have really taken a hit. So what can we do to foster that? So we're designing spaces with a variety of work points to encourage engagement and movement throughout the office, not just at your workstation. So emphasizing intuitive work points, what does that really mean? So what we mean by that is implementing, state-of-the-art ergonomics, thermal comfort solutions, adjustable lighting. We really want our spaces to support each individual's work style, whether that means, working in a sit-to-stand in an open office setting, or really having the flexibility to go into a focus room for more heads-down productivity throughout the day. So high tech equals high touch. So what we mean by that, we need to outfit our spaces with seamless technology throughout that feels integrated and intentional. That gives our employees the opportunity to touch down not only at work points and conferencing, but also at lounge and collaboration zones that offer different sitting postures, and really gives you the opportunity to have, really touch down and work in a more relaxed setting. Once again, trying to bring that comfort from home into the workplace as well. So how can we create spaces that encourage chance encounters between colleagues, whether that be mentors, supervisors, or just your peers? These are the opportunities that were difficult to recreate in remote work. There we go. Creating spaces that enable professional growth are not only setting the stage for those chance encounters, but also designing platforms for teaching opportunities and cross-mentoring opportunities, such as, this lovely stadium stair we have here before us.
And speaking of beautiful stadium stairs, we want to create moments that matter. So a lot of design magazines you might see talk about like the Instagrammable moment. That's great. Creating spaces for social media is fine, but what can we do to make them impactful and memorable and mean something to people and make people excited and engaged and want to come back to those workspaces? So we want to create things that you can't necessarily get at home. Sometimes that's just, well, my dog's not barking and there's not a lawnmower outside and my kids aren't here and there's really killer internet connection. You know, there are easier things. Or it might be like there's a keg tap and awesome coffee at the office, so I want to go there because my coffee at home isn't as good. You know, maybe that's really engaging amenities. We want to think about creating spaces that provide and encourage things like healthy food options. Whether or not our clients are going for LEED or WELL or any other sustainability certification, we want to build those spaces as if they are, because we want to encourage people to be healthy and happy and whole as human beings first, and then they can do their best work at their office, right? So maybe the keg tap is in there. We also want to think about providing outdoor experiences, and you know, outdoor doesn't necessarily have to mean outdoor like this beautiful roof in the middle of New York City, but how can we provide enjoyable spaces that incorporate biophilic elements, circadian rhythm, lighting, you know, things that tune our bodies to the natural world outside, make us more happy, more productive, more motivated, less likely to quit or call in sick. We know that from our friends, the doctors and psychologists and scientists, and we can incorporate strategies, including lighting and biophilia and plants, into our spaces, whether or not you even have access to outdoors or not in a workspace. And then we're also really taking cues from lifestyle brands, from hospitality, from residential. What are those elements of home that are comfortable and make you feel good and make you happy that we can bring into the office in an appropriate way, right? We're not saying we're going to put beds at the office, but you know, how can we bring those elements from home in to create that stickiness, to create that feeling that I belong here and I want to be here with my colleagues at the workplace? And then we also really need to think about seamless transitions and equity. So this is, you know, how much heavy, awkward, annoying technology or equipment are you having to lug back and forth every day that you decide, oh, I'm at home on Monday and Friday, but I'm in the office on, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That's not necessarily the most seamless transition, and it doesn't encourage people to thrive in this hybrid environment. So how can we create equitable spaces, again, that are designed for all types of people, all types of brains, all types of learning experiences, and how can we also integrate the technology and the equipment seamlessly so that people come to the office and they know I have control over my thermal comfort. I have adjustable lighting at my workspace. I can move workspaces throughout the day. I'm not chained to one desk, right? I have the technology I need. I have the fast internet. I have the great coffee. The more we can do to encourage these seamless transitions, the better the outcome will be.
So let's talk gathering types, right? So I do have to say we have fallen into this pattern of, you know, we look at the program, we're checking off the boxes, you know, we have the 3 small conference rooms, the 2 medium conference rooms, and that 1 extra large conference room that gets used once a quarter, right? So we really want to take a step back and understand which spaces are really being utilized, how are our teams really working. So we want to ask, what is the purpose of the meeting, right? Is it information sharing? Is it selling to clients? Is it innovation? And then how do we align the design? How do we align the lighting, the furniture solutions, the AV solutions to really speak to what our teams are needing? So we have broken down the settings into 12 main categories. The first 6 we're seeing here are more conventional in some forms, you know, private and closed settings. So anywhere from our typical meeting room, an executive center, a classroom, to all the way to our more informal, open, larger gathering spaces. How do we set up the stage for more suitable, adaptive meeting spaces, whether it's social gatherings, assembly, or our lovely stadium stair that came back to visit us? You know, on that same note, we need to create an equitable solution for hybrid work. Hybrid work is here to stay, right? So we want our remote participants to feel like they are a part of the team and not just a tiny face on a screen, right? So how can we really design the spaces, design the AV solutions to, bring us together as a team, whether you're in the office or you're working remote. We're also utilizing technology to create not only more immersive environments, but also settings that are interactive and engaging. So even in these larger settings for AV, it's not just circulating content that someone has to generate. It's really more interactive, and it really gives another opportunity for teams to work in a different way, a more dynamic way.
So there are some scary speed bumps ahead on this slide that I'm not going to read to you, but basically, the decisions we're making now are like buying on credit. The bill is going to come due, and I think a lot of our bills are maybe past due in the last 3 years, and we're acknowledging some things that, again, maybe in our workspace we were just making do with, like, oh, well, our teams are kind of siloed and they don't talk to one another, and our break room is really depressing and no one wants to eat together, and everyone's eating at their desks and they're feeling kind of bummed out about it, but it is what it is, right? Well, we're done with it is what it is. And so we really want to take the opportunity to make sure that these things stop happening. We want to stop allowing silos in our workspaces. We want to stop that lack of coaching. We want spontaneous mentorship to be just something that happens because of how the space supports a company's culture. And we want to think a lot about what is the purpose of why are we here? What is our culture? What are our values? And make sure that, the people that are at work, hopefully their values as people align with their business's values, right? So that it's a really synergistic relationship and you feel like you're part of something and you're a member of something and you're not just a number or an employee. And so these are the things that we're looking at, again, to create those success factors in the hybrid work environment. Again, we want to reinforce culture. We want to be inclusive for everyone. We want to think about neurodiversity and providing different settings that allow people to move throughout the day, whether it's at your workstation, in your private office, in a phone room, in an open collaborative setting while you're grabbing a cup of coffee. We want to build environments that engage people. We want to create lighting solutions that are adjustable, that allow people's brains to be functioning and supported better. So we're going to share a video that talks a bit more about this, but at the end of the day, we really want to create spaces where people want to be. Did I do it? I didn't do it. Let's try again.
Maybe.
Maybe?
Just thinking.
It worked a minute ago. There it is.
It was the one thing we tested for the presentation.
inspired when I watch that video. And the music is so motivating. So thank you all for coming this morning. That was our presentation, and we'd love to open it up to questions if you have any. Yes, sir. I think everyone is going to kind of have that circle around them for a while. We're seeing a lot more sanitation stations, as we're calling them, throughout the open work plan. We are seeing a lot more clean desk policies. It kind of feels like it's more of like a change management conversation. But we are absolutely planning our spaces to be more flexible in furniture solutions too. So we're seeing a bit wider footprint in terms of like circulation space. Density isn't quite where it was, you know, in New York a few years ago when everyone was sitting 3 feet apart and it was fine. Right. Even in New York, they're like, maybe pump the brakes on that one. But Sarah, do you have anything to add?
We have seen with a lot of our larger corporate clients have shifted their standard from like a 5-foot table to a 6-foot table. That's one thing that I've noticed, you know, during COVID and post-COVID. So that's definitely a transition. I mean, I think as far as getting the offering for more enclosed spaces, I think that is still important, and I think that's part of the variety that we're wanting to introduce, right? So definitely focused pods, focused rooms, more, you know, enclosed, you know, collaborations, seating. So I think that's just generally the direction that we're headed, but definitely helps address that, you know, concern as well.
And clients are paying for those really expensive mechanical systems that are like whatever the better version of MERV 13 is now. I mean, they're paying for like upgraded systems that, you know, in typical like 80s office buildings, maybe clients 3 years ago would have been okay with just leaving as is. So I think the filtering and, you know, what equipment is in place from a mechanical perspective is super important. Yeah. Thanks for the question. Audrey.
I guess to add to that, with equipment, appliances, and more graphics, things like that, do you see that clients are willing to pay the money for the cost of that because it's more expensive?
I am seeing equipment packages like I have never seen in my life. I mean, the fanciest, the best, the like Italian espresso machines, and you know, everyone wants a cold brew tap, everyone wants a keg, everyone wants a wine fridge. I mean, it's incredible. And a lot of buildings have those amenities now in, you know, the ground floor because that's an amenity that gets tenants to want to lease at the building, right, and pay more rent. But we are seeing a huge increase, yeah, in really, really high-end amenities that people, I mean, we literally have executives say, I have this wine fridge at my second home and I want you to put it in my office, because they want the comfort of home at the office, right? It's like, if I'm gonna be here, I have this level of expectation, and it has increased. And it's not just law firms. I mean, we're seeing it across multiple sectors. Tech is another huge one. I mean, dry cleaning, daycare, pet care, holistic health, yoga. I'm putting in a hair salon right now for a tech company, an in-house hair salon. Fine, yes, absolutely. I'm gonna have to remember how to lay out a hair salon, but you know, whatever they want, we give them, of course, as you know, so.
Yeah, I think for attraction and retention, I think it's really important to stay competitive, right? Because everyone's doing it, everyone's kind of looking at what's the newest, what's the, you know, latest amenity that we can include within our space.
And it's kind of scary too when you see what some of the Silicon Valley firms are putting into their spaces. It's like, I don't know if the younger workforce is seeing those spaces and thinking that like every office has a slide, or every office feeds you 3 meals a day. I don't know if like social media is not helping us on that front, but it's like, no, not everyone. A slide is not appropriate for every office, but yeah, coffee is like the biggest deal right now. And of course the lead times are terrible and you can't get any of it in time, but did you have a question?
Follow-up question on that. Is there any
think it's part of the ESG goals of firms that we've seen. It's not an option. So like healthy snacks are not an option. And maybe they'll still provide the Diet Coke, but it's hidden, right? So it's subconscious, it's design psychology, which I get really excited about, but it's like we're gonna put all the green juice and all the beautiful food options front and center in this amazing glass display fridge, right? And then we're gonna hide the candy bars and the Dr. Pepper in the corner. But I think there's like this level of expectation now that if I'm gonna come into the office, I expect twice as good as what you were giving me in 2018. And for the people that were hired during COVID or are maybe straight out of school, they never saw the before times. So they have even higher expectations, I think, sometimes than everyone else that was already at the office, right? Because everyone else that was already at the office was used to what we had before and maybe making do. But
And I do think it's a great question because we do get that from our clients sometimes where, okay, let's bring in a playroom, let's get some foosball tables. I think there's always a question of, are they just gonna sit there and use, on some more recent projects, what we've heard is, it really depends on where it's placed within the office. So on one of my last projects, we did bring in some of that, play area next to our work cafe actually, and it actually worked to activate one another, right? So in their prior space, their work cafe really wasn't utilized. People were going out every day to eat, really it was one or two people use the microwave in there once a day. So the playroom actually helped activate the work cafe and really invited people to stay and collaborate with each other. That can't be a blanket statement, right? I mean, it's appropriate for some firms and not others, but I think we've actually gotten some really great feedback.
And we're seeing a lot of esports game rooms too. Software developers, engineers, really brilliant, really technology-driven people want the full gaming console and the giant screen and the reclining lounge chairs in their space. So we did a lounge that was outfitted with, God knows which PlayStation they put in there, but they were like, no, we're not going to use the ping pong, but we have to have all of the video games on the planet in our office. And it's awesome because the way that their brains work, they need that in order to take a break and disconnect. And meanwhile, they're secretly engaging with their colleagues and having that connection and that moment that matters, but they don't realize it because they're just killing each other on this video game. But it's cool seeing tech clients and different business units that do different things are asking for different amenities, and it's really cool to see kind of oh right, because that's what is restful and re-energizing to you. But maybe for someone else it's I need to take a lap around the campus and get fresh air, right, and listen to a podcast. So it's cool to see that shift or the difference. Laura?
So some of the things you mentioned, ergonomic considerations, lighting control, healthy food, option type stuff, are part of the WELL certification, WELL Building Standard. So do you find that more of your clients are actually going for the certification zone, or are they just looking to kind of follow some of the guidelines or take information from some of the guidelines and not actually go for the certification?
So in my experience, actually a lot are, and this is personal, right? A lot are following the guidelines and not necessarily going for the certification. Well, we try to push it whenever it's appropriate. For some of our clients, it's really just designing to that baseline, right? We just want to create these spaces that are sustainable, that are, better for the well-being of our employees, but not necessarily going for the certification. So, at HOK, we say that's kind of our baseline that we design to, right? And if we get the client that it does want to go for lead or doesn't want to go for well or fit well, all the better, right? And I think that helps us have that client that is interested in those goals, and we can help educate and drive that process. But in the situations where they don't, I think it still serves as a really great design concept to work with.
And I mean, nowadays with all of the green energy codes and especially like West Coast projects, I mean, you're basically there. Like, your lighting's there, your Energy Star appliances are there. There are so many things that we're doing that are already getting you those points. You don't have to necessarily add the circadian lighting, but you can. I did a project with Ketra in LA and it was so cool. I had never done actual like circadian lighting where it changed throughout the day, and it was awesome and so much coordination and so painful, but so beautiful when it was done. You know, so that level is totally possible, and that project went for LEED and WELL certification, and it was baked into that company's DNA. Like, we went to the interview and they said this project will be this LEED certification and this WELL certification, period, right? But even if the client doesn't want the plaque on the wall, we and a lot of other firms in town are going to be designing to that standard anyway, and code forces us to get a lot of the way there. Anyone else? Yes.
In terms of hybrid or are there any strategies to simulate those in the office, or are there any like VR, radar implementation?
So we are actually seeing that again a lot of times on the West Coast, but now even like in Austin, because that's really become that tech hub for innovation. We're building so many innovation centers across the country, like Kansas City, St. Louis. I mean, middle of the country are getting these really cool state-of-the-art innovation centers. And I think we can do some pretty easy things. Like, I don't remember that slide that Sarah spoke to, where it was sort of a meeting in the round. And there was a seat, but then behind each of the seats there was a monitor. So I think it's really important to think about how, and of course this really comes down to working with our AV and lighting consultants, right? But how do we get all of the technology at the right eye level so that it's not one monitor at the end of a 20-foot long table? That doesn't feel good, right? That feels, you're very remote. But how do we create that equitable arrangement? And a lot of it is kind of a circular concept or design, but I think getting everyone on the same playing field helps you feel like you're part of the conversation and you're not this strange, you know, onlooker, outsider.
The little face on the screen.
Yeah, the little face in the corner. Oh, and I'm using like a square format monitor at home. I go in every day because my at-home setup is old and terrible, but you know. Yeah, but it's like we have coffee table books to like prop up our screens. I mean, none of this is ideal, right?
We're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there. And I'm just going into the office a lot. I gotta get away from my dog.
Just need to bring her in.
She barks way too much. She would drive everyone crazy. Are there any other questions? Thank you all so much for being here this morning.
Yes, thank you. And those are great